The name Deion Sanders opens doors, but it also opens floodgates. For Shedeur Sanders, every move has been filtered through his father's legend, every gesture interpreted as mimicry, every mistake amplified. NFL circles don't just question his skill, they question his independence. As if talent passed down makes effort less meaningful. As if being the son of a Hall of Famer is a reason to doubt instead of a reason to watch. That's the trap Shedeur refuses to step into. He's not chasing distance from Deion. He's chasing clarity about who he is. In Cleveland, he's putting in work that cameras miss and fans don't see, knowing that respect earned without shortcuts is the only kind that lasts. What he's building isn't a break from legacy. It's a legacy within one. And he's doing it not by changing who he is, but by refusing to let the league tell him who he should be. Shedeur Sanders didn't walk into the NFL as just a quarterback. He walked in with a narrative already written for him. One he didn't ask for, and one that many never even bothered to fact-check. Because when your father is Deion Sanders, you're not treated like any other prospect. You're not judged off tape or performance. You're judged off assumption. From the start, it was clear that Shedeur wasn't going to get a fair shot. Not because he lacked skill. His arm strength, field vision, and leadership were well documented. Not because he lacked toughness.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
He played through a brutal season at Colorado behind a collapsing offensive line and still managed to deliver standout performances. And definitely not because he lacked football IQ. The numbers speak for themselves. But that didn't matter. What mattered, to NFL decision-makers and media figures alike, was that he came with too much confidence, too much swagger, too much Deion. And that, to them, was the red flag. Not missed reads, not poor mechanics, not inconsistent decision-making, just personality. They saw him walking with confidence, and they read it as entitlement. They saw him building his personal brand, and they framed it as a distraction. They heard his last name, and they assumed he hadn't earned any of it. It's a pattern that isn't new. It's just louder when the spotlight is this bright. Because when you're the son of one of the most iconic athletes in history, the media doesn't come to watch your growth. They come to challenge your right to exist in that space at all. Shedeur was never given the benefit of the doubt. And when draft day came, it showed. A fifth-round selection for a quarterback with his level of talent? It didn't add up. But once you peel back the layers, you realize it had nothing to do with his game and everything to do with perception. Analysts mentioned character concerns without context. They cited media distractions without facts. They used vague language that conveniently avoided specifics but stuck to him like glue. And yet, no one pointed out how those same traits are embraced in other players. Because here's the double standard. When white quarterbacks show confidence, they're seen as fiery, competitive, charismatic. When Shedeur shows confidence, it's arrogance. When others capitalize on their family connections, it's tradition. When he does it, it's nepotism. When others have media followings, it's good branding. When he does it, it's an issue. It's exhausting to watch the league romanticize underdog stories, then penalize someone like Shedeur for not fitting into the exact kind of struggle narrative they want. He wasn't some small school sleeper with no press. He came in with attention, expectations, and legacy. But that doesn't make him less of a worker. That doesn't mean he skipped the grind. Because while the world was focused on what he represents, Shedeur was busy putting in the work. He showed discipline, patience, and control, even as people talked about him like he hadn't earned a single yard. He didn't lash out. He didn't spiral. He stayed focused. And when Rex Ryan decided to take that disrespect public, questioning Shedeur's attitude, dismissing his effort, and dragging his name into yet another lazy comparison, it became clear just how baked in the bias really was. Rex didn't attack his game. He attacked his character. He made it personal because he could. Because when players like Shedeur walk into the NFL with confidence, there's an unspoken expectation that they should be put in their place. Rex tried to do that, but Shedeur wasn't having it. He pushed back, not with emotion, but with clarity. Not with name-calling, but with a calm demand for respect. He didn't go low. He didn't feed the drama. He simply asked the question, Why are you so comfortable disrespecting me when you've never spoken to me, never coached me, and clearly haven't watched the film?" And in that moment, the script flipped, because Shedeur didn't just defend himself. He exposed the system. He exposed the way narratives are built not on reality, but on reaction. He showed how quickly opinions form when people start with a conclusion and work backward. And he forced the conversation into uncomfortable territory. Territory about race, about legacy, about who gets to be confident and who gets criticized for it, about who gets second chances and who has to be perfect on the first try. And even then, Shedeur didn't play the victim. He didn't drag Rex or rant about the league. He let the facts sit there unshaken. He let the silence speak louder than the noise. Because that's the thing about Shedeur. He's not just here to play football. He's here to shift the narrative. He's not trying to be his dad. He's trying to be better in a league that's made it harder for him to be seen clearly. He's not trying to coast on a last name. He's trying to outwork the assumptions that come with it. He's not begging for approval. He's earning respect the hard way. In Cleveland, that work continues. He's not being handed anything. He's grinding, learning, absorbing. Every day is a test, and he's passing them quietly, one rep at a time. He doesn't need a documentary crew following him to prove he's serious. His teammates see it, the coaches see it, and eventually, the rest of the league will too. Because here's what's coming. When the moment arrives, when Shedeur finally gets that chance under center and the world is watching, it won't be a fluke. It won't be a redemption arc. It'll be what it always should have been. Proof. Proof that the league got it wrong. Proof that perception and reality don't always line up. Proof that the only thing holding Shedeur back was a bias attached to his name, not the talent behind it. And when that happens, the same voices that doubted him will flip the narrative. That's how it always goes. The same analysts who question his drive will praise his poise. The same media who labeled him a distraction will call him a breakout star. And they'll act like they supported him all along. But those of us paying attention will remember. We'll remember how they questioned his character without evidence. We'll remember how they treated his confidence like a crime. We'll remember how they buried the football to write the headline. And we'll remember how Shedeur stayed the course anyway. That's the story. That's the truth, not the manufactured narratives or lazy comparisons. Just a young quarterback who knew who he was, stood in it, and worked until the world caught up. So if you're watching this unfold, if you're seeing the same patterns, if you're done with the way players like Shedeur are misunderstood before they're even given a chance, drop a comment, like this video, share it with someone who still doesn't get it, and make sure you're subscribed, because we'll be here when the moment comes. When Deion Sanders gets a chance to silence the noise the only way that ever really matters, in the end zone. And when that happens, there won't be anything left to say, just receipts. And if you've been watching closely, you know this isn't about waiting for Deion Sanders to become something great. This is about recognizing that he already is. The issue isn't his skill set. It isn't his maturity. It's that the system he's trying to rise in isn't designed to celebrate players like him until after they've been dragged through the mud. Then they get celebrated. Then they become inspiring. But not before. Because let's tell the truth, the NFL loves an underdog, but only when it's on their terms. They want the kind of underdog who keeps his head down, smiles at the cameras, and never challenges a narrative. Someone who waits for permission to be confident. Someone who's grateful to be there. But Shedeur, he doesn't need permission. He's not begging for entry. And he's definitely not pretending to be someone he's not. And that alone makes him dangerous to the people who write the scripts. They try to write him off as a product of privilege, as if being Deion Sanders' son automatically handed him everything. But what they refused to admit was that coming from a famous name doesn't erase the pressure. It multiplies it. Every snap Shedeur took came with more judgment. Every mistake, magnified. Every success, dismissed as handed to him. That's not privilege. That's a microscope. And Shedeur handled it all with a level of composure that most players twice his age still struggle to find. He didn't chase clout. He didn't punch back at every critic. He didn't collapse under the pressure. He kept working. He kept leading. He kept showing up. That's why this story matters. Because while the NFL gatekeepers try to label him, reduce him, and delay him, Shedeur never changed. He just outlasted the noise. And now he's in Cleveland, a city that knows a thing or two about being underestimated, a team that doesn't care about media hype or family legacies, a place where players earn their spot, where the expectations are real and the room is full of competitors. And that's exactly where Shedeur belongs. He's not asking to be handed the reins. He's not pretending to be ready for a franchise role on day one. He's doing what he's always done, proving it, quietly, relentlessly, without theatrics. And let's be honest, this part of the journey, it's the most dangerous for his critics, because it's happening in silence. No headlines, no viral moments. Just Shedeur behind the scenes, putting together the kind of foundation that lasts. Because when it's finally his time, it won't be a surprise to anyone actually paying attention. It'll be the most obvious thing in the world. And when that happens, you can expect the media to pivot. They'll say he matured. They'll say he figured it out. But let's be clear, Shedeur didn't suddenly become ready. He was ready. The league just took too long to admit it. This isn't a redemption arc. It's a correction. The NFL misread him. The media misrepresented him. The draft misjudged him. But none of that changed who he is. And that consistency, that unwavering commitment to being himself in a system that tried to mold him into something else, that's what makes Shedeur special. He didn't conform. He didn't break. He didn't lose himself trying to appease anyone. And when you look at the path he's carved so far, every step has been earned. Every criticism faced head-on. Every stereotype challenged. Every false narrative chipped away by consistent effort, consistent performance, and consistent character. Because let's talk about that for a second. The character rumors? The whispers about ego and attitude? Where's the evidence? Not from teammates. Not from coaches. Not from anyone who's actually worked with him. They came from outside the locker room. From people who watched highlight clips and interviews and decided to read between lines that weren't even there. From scouts and executives more concerned with social media optics than actual leadership qualities. Meanwhile, Shedeur has been doing community outreach, engaging with young fans, representing himself with poise during press tours, and still showing up to work with the kind of consistency that defines real professionals. But that side of him doesn't trend. It doesn't go viral. It doesn't sell controversy. And that's what makes this whole thing feel so manufactured, so frustrating, so familiar, because this isn't just about Shedeur. This is about the way black quarterbacks, especially those who dare to be confident, are treated in this league. It's about a standard that shifts depending on who's under center. It's about the way personality gets weaponized when it doesn't match the comfort level of the people in charge. And it's about time we stop pretending that doesn't happen. Because Shedeur's story exposes that truth in full color. And not because he's trying to be a symbol. He's just trying to be himself. But when yourself is confident, self-aware, and born into a legacy that refuses to shrink, you don't get the luxury of being seen without bias. You have to earn it twice. And that's what Shedeur is doing. Every practice rep, every team meeting, every decision to keep moving forward instead of getting stuck on who said what about him on ESPN. That's the work. That's the part they don't show. And that's the part that's going to make the payoff so undeniable. Because let's not kid ourselves. His moment is coming. It may be an injury. It may be a second-string rotation. It may be a preseason statement. But that door, it's going to open. And when it does, Shedeur won't walk through it with a chip on his shoulder. He'll walk through it like he was always meant to. Because he was. The only thing that's ever held him back was perception. But perception doesn't last forever. Performance does. And when that performance hits, when the stats align with the leadership, when the calm, focused confidence finally gets paired with opportunity, the narrative won't just change. It'll collapse. And the best part? Shedeur won't need to say a word. He'll let the work speak. Now, we're entering the most satisfying chapter of all, the quiet build. No headlines, no sound bites, no distractions. Just Deion Sanders showing up every day to do what everyone swore he wouldn't. Not because he has something to prove to them, but because he has something to prove to himself. This isn't about revenge. It's not about clapping back at critics. It's not even about silencing people like Rex Ryan, who took cheap shots from the safety of a studio chair. That was never the goal. The goal has always been legacy, but not the kind handed down, the kind you build. And that's what's happening in real time. Because while the world debated whether Shedeur would collapse under the weight of his last name, he made a decision. Let them talk. Let them doubt. Let them need him to fail. And in the meantime, let the work do what it always does. Win. See, what most people still don't understand is that Shedeur doesn't carry Deion's spotlight. He carries Deion's expectations. And those are two very different things. The spotlight is about fame, headlines, visibility. The expectations, those are about discipline, mental strength, doing more than everyone else, even when no one's looking. Staying 10 steps ahead because you were raised to understand that talent alone won't save you. Not in this world, and definitely not in this league. That's why it was never about entitlement. If anything, it's the opposite. Shedeur wasn't groomed to coast. He was taught to grind. That's why he never bit back at the nepotism label, even when it was lobbed at him by people who had no problem watching other second-generation athletes rise unchallenged. He knew the game. He knew what it looked like when the success of a black family, loud, proud, and unfiltered, made people uncomfortable. So he took it on the chin, not because it was fair, but because it was expected. That's what resilience looks like. And now he's in the one place where perception doesn't matter. The locker room. You can't fake it in there. You either earn respect or you don't. And slowly, steadily, Shedeur is, not with speeches, not with Instagram, but with consistency, with preparation, with the same traits that got him here, even if the world chose not to see them. And when his opportunity comes, and it won't be about hype. It'll be about execution. He won't need to put on a show. He won't need to remind people who his father is. He'll just step onto the field and do what he's always done. Lead. Because leadership isn't just about what you say. It's about what you don't say. And Shedeur's silence this offseason, it's been deafening. No rants. No campaigns. No image rehab. Just work. It's almost poetic. The same media that once obsessed over his every move has gone quiet, waiting for something to react to. But Shedeur is not playing that game anymore. He's not feeding the headlines. He's writing his own. And the best part? He's doing it without permission. Because that's really what this all comes down to. The league didn't give him permission to be himself. The media didn't give him permission to lead his own narrative. The scouts didn't give him permission to be a fifth-rounder with a first-round mindset. And yet, here he is, still standing, still focused, still moving. And now we're all just waiting for the snap. That one moment, the substitution, the rotation, the shot, the second Shedeur steps under center in a regular season game, all the noise will catch up with reality, and the league won't be able to hide from it anymore. Because Shedeur isn't a fluke. He's not a sideshow. He's not a project quarterback. He's ready. And not because someone on TV said so. Not because a scout came around. But because he's been ready. Because he's been doing the work no one cared to look at. Because he's had to walk through a league that questioned him louder than it questioned players with half his tape and twice his privilege. That's the part that should make people stop and think. This isn't a redemption story. It's an exposure story. Because if Shedeur's last name was anything else, if he were quieter, more polished of press, less visible, he wouldn't have fallen to the fifth round. He wouldn't have had to defend his character on national television. He wouldn't have been asked to carry himself as both a franchise quarterback and a symbol for how to act the right way. But he was asked, and he never flinched. That's what makes this moment so powerful. Because everything that's coming, he earned it. And everything he endured along the way, he outlasted it. He didn't need to change who he was. He just needed to keep showing up until the system couldn't ignore him anymore. And now, that moment's on the horizon. Maybe it happens mid-season. Maybe it happens next season. But it will happen. And when it does, there won't be anything left for the doubters to say. Because the only thing more undeniable than Shedeur's talent is his patience. He waited for the world to catch up. And when it finally does, he won't throw it in anyone's face. He won't point fingers. He won't call out names. Because he's not here for the clapback. He's here for the legacy. And not just the one he inherited. The one he's building with every practice, every meeting, every quiet moment of focus behind the scenes. So if you've been watching all this unfold, if you saw the way the media turned confidence into controversy, if you saw the way critics tried to tear him down before he even got a real chance, if you saw the way Shedeur Sanders took it all in stride and kept pushing forward, then you already know what time it is. Like the video. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Share it with someone who still thinks the draft told the whole story. And hit subscribe, because we're just getting started. Shedeur Sanders isn't waiting to be discovered. He's waiting to be undeniable. And that moment, it's already on its way.